Erik, do you worry about these tariffs and trade? We were together at the World Bank IMF meetings. It seems that actually allies keep on getting exemptions. Will it be permanent?
Yeah, I think there's a fair chance, but I worry a lot about it because it provides uncertainty. You never know whether is it now for 30 days or how far it is, and even if, also importantly, even if we get these tariffs on steel and aluminum, that's not the end of the world if that's all there is. I mean, it's bad, but life is never perfect. The issue is that you sort of, as the Europeans already said, we will not negotiate under threat. So there's always sort of this sort of tit-for-tat risk. So yeah, it could spin out of control. I don't think it will, but do I worry? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Professor, I guess this is a problem, right? There's no talk under threat. Do you need to speak to the Chinese differently?
Absolutely. The U.S. has a strange strategy because they could get the European Union to help them with China. The European Union is just as worried as the United States are about how they deal with intellectual property, how they deal with state subsidies. But now the United States has alienated the European Union with these metal tariffs. So they're dividing and conquering when actually they need to work with the European Union against China.
Okay.
Go ahead, Francine, please, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, Professor, whether the only way of getting Europe on side would be to drop the tariffs on steel and trade and just focus on IP.
I think that would be a good strategy, but it seems unlikely. I mean, Trump has tied the steel tariffs and the metal tariffs to negotiations over issues like automobiles. So he's really trying to pick off these bilateral deals. He's trying to pick off individual industries. And so it really is a difficult position. I hope that we'll see a permanent exemption, but as you said, it's undermining the stability, the certainty in the global trading environment.
Erik Nielsen, how is global trade? I mean, we're 10 years, 11 years into a recovery, and you and I know how global trade has rolled over, maybe over the last decade. Is there a pop to gross exports?
Yeah, I think first, as you said, global trade didn't do very well from 2012 until about a year ago or thereabout, growing probably less than global GDP growth did. And then we had a nice pick up for about 9 months, 12 months, as far as we can gather. But it looks like during the first quarter of this year that we have seen some slowdown, but on our leading indicator, where we sort of track the very early sort of indications, I think global trade probably is still running at plus 4% or thereabout, which is not too bad.
Professor Rickard, when we look at trade and we look at what's going to go on, Mr. Mnuchin talking the usual talk that the Secretary of Treasury talks, what do you want to see out of a Trump administration that basically is bilateral, or maybe unilateral, or maybe my way or the highway? What would you like to see them amend as they actually confront discussions?
You put your finger on the key challenge. The key challenge is that Trump wants to go bilateral, and by doing so, he's undermining the multilateral institutions like the World Trade Organization that the U.S. originally was one of the key architects of. And that multilateral institution, the World Trade Organization, has set the rules of the game, and it has provided certainty for the past several decades. So potentially by undermining the multilateral institutions, by undermining the WTO, we're facing a trading world without certainty, without rules, without an international arbiter. So I'd like to see a move towards playing in the multilateral system, working through the WTO, rather than trying to pick off these bilateral negotiations one by one.
Erik, do you worry that the world economy has slowed, or do you think it'll rebound later this year?
I think it's almost certain that it has slowed a little bit, but it was growing very rapidly. So I'm in the camp that I think that global trade and global growth is probably going to hang in there quite nicely. The biggest threat is when the U.S. slows down. It's kind of overdue, in a sense, a long recovery, and there are lots of reasons why this will happen. But the fiscal expansion they do is going to give them a shot of steroid, or whatever the term is, for a year or 18 months. But then when you look late next year or whenever, I worry a lot.
Erik, you were always the optimist on Europe, even when people didn't believe you, right? And you were proven right when we saw, PMIs pick up. Do you now think the European economy has peaked?
Yeah, almost certainly. I think, we did a piece, or my colleague Danielle Vanessa did a piece last week that showed the difference between the first releases of GDP numbers and the sort of final after 2-3 years. And the European numbers are always revised up, and the American numbers are always revised down. So, and it also showed that the PMIs are actually pretty good predictors of the final numbers. So on that stat, you would say, coming out of 2017, we were probably growing in Europe by 2.5% to 3% or thereabout, which is well above potential. So it's natural we are slowing somewhat. But I don't think it's anything more fundamental than that.